Hello everyone and welcome back to an orientation session on Indian polity and constitution. So, GS paper 2 of your mains syllabus comprises of 4 topics, or should I say 4 subjects. The first one is of course polity and constitution. Then we have governance, social justice and international relations. Now we'll discuss about polity and constitution today. It's one of those big 4, as we say, the 4 major subjects in UPSC. Now, as far as your discussions on polity are concerned, as far as any kind of discussion on any GS paper is concerned in UPSC, 3 things are extremely important. The first one is, why are we going to study this subject? We might take around 100 plus hours of classes and we will cover everything under polity. But do you really think that 100 hours are needed? So much of revision is required. My whole point is, what is the importance of polity in the exam? Now, how do you gauge or judge the importance of any subject in the exam? A very, very simple answer. You can simply go through the questions that have come from that topic in the exam. Now, if you look into this, you'll find that as far as Indian polity is concerned, these are the number of questions. These are the number of questions that have been asked from Indian polity in the prelims exam. So I hope you're aware the prelims paper is, you have 100 questions, each question worth 2 marks. The cutoff nowadays is ranging to as low as 75 as well, right? So over the course of so many years, there have been some off years also. We had an off year, for example, one off year was 2016. In 2016, we had only 6 questions from polity. But then in 2017, back to 22 questions. So you can see the spread of questions. There are always more than 15 questions. Roughly on average, expect 15 to 20 questions from Indian polity and constitution. Of course, this year we had slightly lesser questions, 9, which means the next year possibly we can expect more questions. Now, the same thing can be seen for your mains exam as well. As far as the main exam is concerned, the number of questions from Indian polity in the main exam. So, as far as the main exam is concerned, how many marks worth questions are there? So, we have the entire GS paper 2 worth 250 marks, right? And this is not the questions, of course. This is the marks. The number of marks that have been allocated to polity. So you can see, on an average, 100 plus marks. This is the line of 100, just so you know. So on an average, around 100 marks worth questions are being asked consistently from polity and constitution. In fact, in the last few years, we have seen 115 marks also, 110 marks also. So this is the 115 marks level and this is 110 marks. That's a huge amount. In fact, I would say, and I would take a risk to say that apart from ethics, polity has the largest contribution vis-a-vis your GS subjects. So yes, this subject is now very important because of the contribution. And that's how it is. You judge the importance of any subject. You also base your preparation. You base your timetable. You allocate more time to a subject based on how important the subject is. If today you get only 1 question from polity in the prelims or mains exam, I don't think you will spend 100 hours studying polity. That's the whole point. So I think this is a very good metric to judge the importance of any subject in the exam. Okay. So that's one thing. Now let's come to the point number 2. What is the second point that is required to be known before you begin your journey of UPSC? Second point is the syllabus. First is knowing the importance of the subject, which can be understood through the number of questions asked. And second is knowing the syllabus. It is very, very important to understand the syllabus of the exam, because see, as far as the prelim syllabus is concerned, UPSC does not really clarify much, frankly. Just 5 words or phrases mentioned: Indian polity and governance, constitution. It seems like we have to study the entire constitution, but that's not true. That's not true. And then we have the political system, the Panchayati Raj, the local self-government, then public policy and rights issues, etc. Rights issues relate to topics like fundamental rights, topics like DPSP, etc. And we have seen a lot of questions coming from polity, fundamental rights and DPSPs in the exam. And I think that's the whole interesting point. In your polity, you will find that the questions from rights and DPSPs are slightly on the easier side. So this is the prelim syllabus, nothing clarified, very confusing as to what to study. But don't worry, because UPSC has given a detail on the mains syllabus. You'll be surprised on the detail provided in the mains syllabus. So this is the entire paper 2 syllabus that is mentioned here. So of course, there are some topics that will be covered under governance, some topics under social justice, and some topics under IR. So let's go through this one by one as to what is required in the exam. First up, the Indian Constitution. Historical underpinnings, the evolution. How did the Constitution come into being? It slowly evolved because when Britishers came and then they had those regulating acts and the Charter Acts and the Government of India Acts. 1909, 1919, 1935, by far the most important Government of India Act, 1935. In fact, we said that 2/3 of Indian Constitution is nothing but the Government of India Act 1935. So yes, this is something you'll be covering in your modern history classes, the first 2 parts. Then coming to features, amendments. We have amendments as well, okay, modifications. The Indian Constitution allows for modifications. In fact, so far, we have made 106 changes. 106 modifications have been made so far in the Indian Constitution. Now, very interesting point. They say significant provisions, meaning not all the provisions, the important ones. I think that's where the beauty lies. You don't have to mindlessly mug up the entire constitution. You just need to go through the significant provisions, the important ones, which again we can understand through looking at the PYQs as to what are the areas from where questions are normally being asked. So the important provisions, and there is a concept called basic structure. Basic structure, rightfully a part of fundamental rights, but still basic structure is a very interesting idea. Of course, it does not find a mention in the constitution, but in 1970s, 1973 to be exact, Supreme Court in one very famous judgment, Supreme Court's famous judgments, which have a very large ramification, which have a huge impact in the country across domains. Those judgments are sometimes referred to as landmark cases, very famous, very popular cases. So there was a landmark judgment called Keswanand Bharti. Keswanand Bharti was a priest in Ednir Mutt in Kerala. But that story for some other day, when we discuss the topics in detail. So in that judgment, the Supreme Court gave a very unique concept. Now, as you all are aware, that we can make amendments in the Constitution, but what is the limit of those amendments? What all things can be modified? Now, some things can be modified, others cannot. Those things that cannot be modified are known as the basic structure of the Constitution. So think of it like this. You go to a PG, a rented house, and you have the room allocated to you. You can stick all the posters inside you want. You can have your map, right? India, physical, India, political, because you have to show off that you are a sincere aspirant also, and that's also important. But the point is, you can paint, repaint, do all sorts of nonsense within the four walls, but you cannot break down the wall and say, no, let me extend my room by breaking down the wall only. That is not allowed. So those walls, those pillars are the basic structure. Those very important features which make the Indian Constitution, the essential values. For example, India is a democracy. You can't change it. India has a parliamentary form of government. You can't change it. So these are some of the features which collectively are known as a basic structure on which the Indian Constitution stands, and you can't modify these structures. So that is the idea of basic structure, more in detail later on. Then the functions and responsibilities of the union and the states. Functions and responsibilities of the union government and the state government. And then issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure. This is a very, very important topic. Issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure. What is meant by federal structure? Federal. Two levels of government. Okay. Federal is a way to refer to two levels of government. That is the federal structure. You will get one question from this topic. That's a guarantee. Okay. You are going to get one question from this topic. It's almost a surety. Then devolution of powers and finances. Providing for powers and finances up to local levels. What is the meaning of local levels? Local level refers to the concept of panchayats and municipalities. And again, please expect one question from local government. It is going to be asked. In the last 10-12 years, there have been just one or two occasions, 1 or 2 years, when a question was not asked from this topic. So these two must read mandatory. Then we have separation of powers. Separation of powers between various organs, dispute redressal mechanisms and institutions. So separation of powers between various organs. We have three organs, L, E and J. I hope you know: legislature, executive and judiciary. So what kind of separation of power system do we have in our country? Separation of powers meaning checks and balances. Other two organs need to keep the third organ in check. That's how we have this idea of separation of powers, in which you also have concepts like judicial activism and PILs, very important topics. You will get a question most likely from topic of judicial activism. So this also, should I say, so this is the number one priority, and I would say this is, if we have to arrange in a hierarchy, number 2, this is the top quality, meaning questions from there, guarantee. Questions from here, very, very likely. Then one topic which we'll cover under governance is the comparison of the Indian constitutional scheme with that of other countries. You need to compare the Indian constitution with that of other countries. So primarily countries like USA, UK and France. USA, UK and France. Now in these three countries, We have three different forms of government. In USA, we have a presidential form of government. In UK, we have what we follow, a parliamentary form of government. And in France, we have a semi-presidential form of government, also called dual executive, okay, where we have the PM and the president. But the point of difference that we have from India is that the president also has real powers in France. So these three, we can compare various facets of Indian rule book with that rule book or those rule books. Then the parliament and the state legislature, structure, functioning, conduct of business, powers and privileges, and issues arising out of them. I would rate this also as second tier, very, very important, because you can get questions in prelims and mains both from this topic about the parliament, parliamentary privileges, the functions of speaker, the independence of speaker, so on and so forth. Then the next topic, the structure, organization, let me just erase all this, structure, organization and the functioning of our judiciary and executive. So the structure, organization, functioning of executive and judiciary, this part is important. Please expect a prelims question from judiciary, that's almost a guarantee. And if you get a separation of powers question, you will not get a question from here. If you get a question from here, then not from there, either of these, okay. Then pressure groups, this part, pressure groups and informal, formal associations and their role in polity, this part is largely covered under either governance or social justice, depending on an organization, how they are proceeding with their format of teaching. So either ways. Then a very, very important topic. So I hope you are aware that in India, we have elections every 5 years. We have periodic elections, and there are two laws that govern the conduct of elections in the country. The first law is called RPA 1950, 1950, and the second one is called RPA 1951. RPA stands for Representation of People's Act 1950, 1951. Very, very important, this law 1951. I would give this top tier because in the last 6-7 years, I think barring 1 year, they have always asked a question from RPA 51. Somehow, somewhere, RPA 51 is involved, and in fact a very small area of RPA 51 is involved, that is chapter 3, which is disqualification. So yes, again important topic. Then appointment to various constitutional posts, powers, functions and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. So we'll cover various kinds of bodies like the ECI, the commissions for scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes and the backward classes, the finance commission, right, the chief commissioner for linguistic minorities or special officer for linguistic minorities, all these things. We also have CAG, but we cover CAG in a different topic under governance, that is transparency. Then statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies. Statutory bodies are legal bodies. Bodies made through law are called statutory. Bodies which are mentioned in the constitution are called constitutional bodies. Most of the statutory bodies like, possibly a CVC, a CIC, etc. Lokpal and NCW and NHRC and NCM. NCW is a commission for women. NCM is a commission for minorities. All these are covered as a part of your governance. Okay. Then the next one, which is government policies and interventions. This is the social justice topic. So, social justice. This also can be a governance or a social justice topic depending on the organization. Then development processes and the development industry, the role of NGOs, SHG, same thing again. a social justice or a governance topic. Let's now move on. So you can always have a syllabus copy and mark these in your syllabus with respect to also the important areas from where there is a higher chance of getting a question. And then now you have largely social justice, governance and IR topics. So these four are topics of international relations, role of civil services in democracy. Of course, this is a governance topic, hardcore governance topic. This is a very, very important governance topic. This is social justice, this is social justice, this is social justice. So this is the entire syllabus of the GS paper 2, the mains exam, which also has its ramification in the prelims. So once we are aware of the entire mains syllabus, then we can clearly understand what is the expectation of UPSC from the aspirant. So two things are done now. First one, why do you study a subject? And second is also what is the syllabus that you need to follow. A very simple instruction to all of you. When you study any topic, for the first few days, what you do is you read the syllabus. I'm not saying mug it up. Just read it. Before you revise, if you come to a class, you have joined a class or you're self-studying, whatever floats your boat, you just read the syllabus for that subject every day for the first 5-7 days when you revise the subject or you study the subject. And then you can move and proceed with your study. It helps you understand what exactly is important, what is not important, because not everything that you see in the newspaper is important. And this is very important in this exam, to limit yourself, because there is overload of information nowadays, excessive information. And because our mind is always so nervous about, can this also be asked? Is it also possible that this question can be asked? So to calm your anxious mind and to prevent yourself from overthinking, it is important to know the syllabus and the previous year questions. Now the third thing that you need to understand and know is the book list. So what is that magical book list that is required to be studied? And if we could study that, we could clear the exam. Now, magical or not, we don't know, but let's move on and try to understand the book list for UPSC Polity. So, let's start with some basic books, NCERT books. So, we have these NCERT books. These are two class 9th books, Democratic Politics 1 and Politics 2, that is of class 10th, two NCERT books. Now, as far as these books are concerned, really easy to understand. In fact, we had our NCERT course here and we covered these books right from not just these two, right from class 6, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. All these 5 NCERTs were covered. So you can just get access and watch those videos as well before you take the polity class, or otherwise also does not really matter. When you come for a class, you will have all topics covered in way more detail. Right? But for any aspirant who is beginning their self-preparation journey, I believe studying these two books could be of great help to them. It builds a base. But again, if you are already a graduate and all, I don't see a need to stoop to such a low level and read these very, very basic books. But still, they might be of help for those who are a bit nervous on what is politics and polity and how do I begin, and I don't understand anything. I have had zero interest in politics. The first time I had interest in politics was when I went to the CJP protest and got a lathi on my leg. If that is who you are, then maybe read the books. At least the next time you protest, you can, rather than abusing, can make some sense also, right? Now, one more point that I'd like to mention is with respect to the two NCERT books of class 11th. Now, these are important books. I would go on to say that these are must-read books, especially this book, Political Theory, class 11th. I think every aspirant should read this book. It is mandatory. It might not give you immediate result. You might not feel where is the connect, what is the point. But in the long run, this gives you a lot of fodder material for answer writing. It opens or widens your horizons for various kinds of topics like, the idea of secularism and nationalism and peace and all such things, which can not only help you in polity, but also help you frame better answers in ethics and essay. Because nowadays essays are on the philosophical, political science type. So that also is of great help. So there are 10 chapters. I would request you all to read all the 10 chapters. This book can also be read. In fact, those aspirants who are coming to the class, we'll be reading this book only, but in way more detail, of course. But you can still go through this book. Don't worry, I'll be telling you once we finish the modules, I'll tell you which chapter to read from this book. You can go through that book as well. Otherwise, also for self-preparation, this book is very important. You should read this book. But this is a must read. Okay. And now to also tell you why this book is so important, political theory, there is a very interesting question that came in UPSC a few years back. In 2019, there was a question. Now, the entire country was discussing about how since 2014, since BJP has come to power, the secularism is going down the drain. But when it comes to DPSP, when it comes to UPSC, the question that UPSC thought of asking when the entire country was discussing about the problems of Indian secularism, UPSC said, you forget all that nonsense. You tell me, what can other countries like France learn from the Indian Constitution's approach to secularism? What can other countries learn from India's practice of secularism? The positives of Indian secularism. In fact, not just in 2019, in 2024 as well, there was a question asked of a similar kind. Discuss India as a secular state and compare with the secular principles of the US Constitution. Now, the point is simple. India or Indian secularism versus French secularism, Indian secularism versus US secularism. Now, you might feel that, sir, do I have to learn the secularism practices of every Western nation? Not really. France and USA both represent the Western idea of secularism, whereas we follow the Indian version of secularism, right? And you'll be surprised that this question could have been answered through your NCERT political theory. This book only. There is a chapter 8 in this book, the heading of which is secularism, and there they have compared Indian secularism with Western secularism. Okay. And they have taken the example of USA. So you can replace it with France as well. So the solution was right there. But if you ignore the NCERTs, then life is going to be difficult. So I would request you all to read political theory as a simple rule. 10 chapters, 3 revisions, and you are done. That's about it. Okay. Now, the next book, or should I say, not a book, but since we are all going to study polity, I would also expect all of you to carry a copy of Indian Constitution, the bare acts, as we say. So, I have given you multiple publications of these bare acts. You can very freely go and purchase this from the market. 3 different publications, same content. Bare Act refers to, Bare Act of Constitution refers to all the articles mentioned as it is, no explanation. Because if we study in the class those articles and topics and then you also go and read in the Constitution, it, should I say, helps you understand the legal language that might be required to write a better answer. So that legal language is very important. And I think that is what possibly would separate an amazing answer from a good answer. And that legal language can be understood or can be built slowly through the understanding of what? The Indian Constitution. So just purchase it. If you don't want to purchase anything, you can download the free PDF also, which is available online. Just type Constitution of India PDF and you will get the legislative website from where you can download it. And then we have one very famous book, Indian Polity by Lakshmikant, 8th edition. Pretty decent as a book, without doubt, though not really helpful for the main exam. Really sorry to break your heart. Decent book for prelims exam. I mean, if you mug up this entire book, I'm sure you can solve around 70-80% questions in prelims. But again, the content is way too much. So don't worry, we'll be discussing about everything, and whenever it comes to any kind of topic we discuss in the class, I will tell you which chapter to read from this book. So that becomes easier for you. So that's about it as far as the book list is concerned. If I have to consolidate and create some kind of, final book list. Oh, by the way, a very interesting point. If you observe this, a very unique scenario, a few years back, there was a question asked in the prelims exam. This is a UPSC prelims question. With reference to Gucci, sometimes mentioned in the news, consider the following statements. It is a fungus. It grows in some Himalayan forest areas. It is commercially cultivated in the Himalayan foothills of northeastern India, blah, blah, blah. Now look at this Instagram handle. The rarest and the yummiest Gucci mushrooms, the most expensive mushrooms, and are only found in Himalayas. It's like, the paper setter in UPSC is following that Instagram handle and has set the question from there. So should we also follow Instagram? I don't know. I mean, that is something that only you can decide, right? So that is how our preparation is going to be. So summarizing all of this, the final book list would look somewhat like this. Of course, the class notes that you are going to get. Like every faculty, I'll say the same thing. My class notes are amazing. Secondly, please carry a copy of Constitution of India, the Bare Act. Then, of course, political theory, that NCERT class 11th book. And then Lakshmikant, that's also required. Beyond that, what is this? Current affairs. Current affairs, and let's not forget the most important element, PYQs, previous year questions, extremely important. See, for current affairs, 3 things need to be done. Please build a solid habit of reading the newspaper on your own. If not the entire newspaper, at least read the editorials on your own on a daily basis. Anything, the Hindu or Indian Express, both are of impeccable quality for UPSC. So no problem there. The Hindu or Indian Express, not the New Indian Express, not that, Indian Express. Second is, of course, the current affairs monthly magazine of any coaching institute. This would work. Okay, every coaching institute has its monthly magazine. It is a collection of all the data information of the last 1 month from newspapers and PIB, etc. And third, Publication Division of Government publishes 2 monthly magazines called Yojana and Kurukshetra. I think it is very important to read the gist, the summary of Yojana and Kurukshetra. it is going to be of great importance if you can go through the gist of Yojana and Kurukshetra. It gives you a lot of fodder material for your answer, not just in polity, governance, social issues, social justice. Paper 1, social issues, Indian society. Paper 3, economics and science and tech and disaster management. Paper 4, on ethics and everywhere, all across UPSC. So gist meaning summary. So you can get the summary of Yojana Kurukshetra from various websites, various coaching organizations. They publish summary every month. So that's all. That is all that is required as far as Indian polity and constitution is concerned for UPSC. So that is all for this video. Let's meet in some other video or in the class. Till then, that is all for me. Jai Hind.